This video is sponsored by Skillshare. There's no shortage of 30-day challenges here on the internet, especially on YouTube. Sure, they can be entertaining to watch, but can they have any obvious benefits for you to try out one for yourself? Although I have enjoyed watching quite a few, honestly, I've never had much interest in trying one out until now. I've decided to give one a go to see how beneficial they can potentially be. So my hope was, by setting this 30-day challenge, that it should really help motivate me and hopefully get me out the door taking more photos. Of course, I hope this video is entertaining to watch and add some value for you watching, maybe even spark you into trying your own 30-day challenge. But ultimately, this one I wanted to do more for personal reasons.
To motivate me to go out and shoot more here in my own city, Sydney.
I always find motivation lacking here at home and find it hard to get out and want to take photos, which honestly is a bit sad. When I'm traveling or visiting a new city, I have all the motivation in the world to go out and shoot. In fact, it's all I mostly do. My camera is always in hand. Just ask my wife. And honestly, I love it. Not only do I feel more inspired, I feel my work improving naturally at a much faster rate. But that quickly comes to a halt and stagnates as soon as I get home here to Sydney. I honestly tend to find myself just stuck here at my desk for hours and hours. Filming these videos, editing photos, replying to emails, watching other videos, just managing my business and all the other stuff that tends to consume my days. That's why I really hope this challenge could really spark me into action, but let's find out. So my aim wasn't to shoot every single day. I'm simply trying to get a small body of work here in Sydney that I'm happy with within these 30 days. Life is pretty busy at the moment, and I feel if I go out shooting every single day, I'm more likely to burn out, not enjoy this challenge, and probably have worse results. So I've set myself the goal of heading out at least 3 days per week, which hopefully is pretty achievable. This all sounded great, but despite being really motivated to get started, the first week didn't exactly go to plan. So the first time I went out, this is what I came back with. Yep, absolutely nothing. I drove to Bondi Beach here in Sydney. I only took my phone, so I went to pay for parking using that. And for some reason, my phone wasn't working on any of the meters. I felt defeated, I tried a couple, and ultimately I turned around and came home. So take two. This time I headed into the city to try some street photography. And well, again, not a great result. It was super busy just after lunchtime, people moving everywhere. I felt overwhelmed and I didn't really get much to show for it. I found this one spot, but that was about it. So that was week one. I only went out twice and had little to nothing to show for it. So a pretty terrible start. I needed a change of approach. So determined to keep at it, I planned things a little bit differently. I picked a day I had no other commitments. I could just focus on shooting and not worry about anything else. Most importantly for me, I got up early and went straight into the city at 7 a.m. This might not be everyone's favorite time of day to shoot, but I know for me, even when I'm traveling, that early morning, people on their way to work, nice morning light, plenty happening, but not too busy. This is when I often enjoy my photography most and probably get the best results. So I planned around that, and surprise, surprise, I was much happier with the results. Mostly taking street photos, I caught some nice morning light, I found a few interesting patches like these, and came back with quite a few images I really enjoyed. I also caught the ferry over to North Sydney and captured a few shots there as well, focusing on something interesting about Sydney, which is this great harbour we have. I was also testing out this tilt shift lens, which was fun playing around with as well. I think the other thing that really helped me on this day was taking far less gear. Rather than having to make decisions on which focal length or which lenses to use, I could just focus on the photography and not worry about those extra decisions or carrying too much gear. So already learning some valuable lessons moving forward for this challenge. 2 days later, I headed back out, and this time it was in the afternoon, a few hours before sunset. I headed back to Bondi Beach. This time, making sure to take my wallet. This was only a quick shoot as the light started to disappear, and honestly, it didn't feel overly successful at the time, feeling quite rushed. Although I did get a few images I don't mind here at Bondi icebergs, capturing some of these swimmers and the waves around the rock pool. I also played around with some slower shutter speeds at a longer focal length. So these are the results from week 2, and I finally had some results to show for this challenge. Looking back, I realized I tend to put far too much pressure on myself to always come home with good results, rather than focusing more on the process itself. This had already taught me a lot. Firstly, to lower my expectations a bit, maybe focus more on the longer term approach, and really trying to keep that motivation high. Importantly here, if you are struggling for motivation or just want to take your skills to the next level, a really great idea to really spark those creative juices and really improve your photography is jumping onto a platform like Skillshare, which conveniently are sponsoring this video. A big thank you to them, as I think this really ties in nicely with this video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and you'll find thousands of classes to dive into and really improve your photography skills, or any other creative skills for that matter. Led by industry experts, I think you'll recognize a few. You can find specific topics like street photography, film photography, making short form content, or even dedicated learning paths you can follow, like growing your first YouTube channel. Perhaps it will even spark your own 30-day challenge just like this one. So make sure to check the description, where the first 500 people will grab a free trial of Skillshare for an entire month to jump in and get started. Some I recommend are ones led by travel photographer Sean Dalton, and this film photography course by Kyle McDougall, a photographer I really enjoy. All right, back to my challenge. On to week 3, which sadly again was a bit of a fail. So I had a lot going on this week. I had a colonoscopy booked in. Thanks for sharing, TK. I also had some work deadlines, and just compacting everything into that week meant I didn't make time at all to go out and shoot. So week 3 down, and again, this was all I had to show for it. Again, nothing. So I accepted that this can happen and moved on to week 4. After this failure, I really wanted to finish strong. Here again, I decided to highlight some more of the harbour, so that was my next mission. I caught a few ferries across different parts of Sydney, also catching a few images I was reasonably pleased with. I also had another successful morning catching some early light and catching some street photography, this time checking out a few different locations. Really forcing myself to finish strong on this one, and it was the week I shot most, and overall a reasonably successful one. So that was week 4 done and dusted, and pretty much the end of this challenge. A good finish to a somewhat mixed challenge. So not quite what I expected. Overall, I didn't get out to shoot as much as I planned in the beginning, but I think I did learn some valuable lessons, which overall I think made this a pretty successful experiment. Here's what I learned. Just the fact that any practice is good practice, and there'll always be lessons there, regardless of the result. Despite doing this challenge, I didn't actually get out as much as I anticipated, but I did get out a lot more than I would have otherwise, and I found some new sites in Sydney, some new places to shoot, and I actually found there's probably more happening than I actually think in Sydney, which you'd think I would know by now after living here for many years. I also tried quite a few new things, like shooting with a full manual tilt shift lens, which was challenging but fun. I also caught more ferries than I ever have in my life, a great way to see the harbour here, and even printed some of my images, which I rarely do. And honestly, even those days I didn't come back with great results, the most important thing is that I learnt something, which I definitely wouldn't do sitting around here at home. The next one is simple. Don't expect great results every time I head out to take photos. Basically accepting that I'm not always going to come home with super interesting results, and that's okay. Having more of a longer term approach and just slowly adding to your portfolio week by week is a really great way of looking at it. This is especially true for street photography, I think, where the hit rate isn't always going to be high. No matter how hard you try, you're not always going to find interesting things and come back with good results. So I think the important thing is just spend more time doing it, and slowly but surely the results will come. Often in Sydney, I'd have one bad street session and I'd come home just thinking Sydney sucks for street photography. Nothing interesting ever happens, which of course isn't true, but the more you keep telling yourself this, you believe it and you don't want to go out to shoot. So I also learned that I need to probably fix my mindset. Lesson 3 was to plan and to use conditions to my advantage. To some degree, all practice is good practice, but I really found the importance of planning, choosing days and conditions you want to go out and shoot, making it challenging enough, but not too challenging that it's going to discourage you. When I was struggling at the beginning, I had to use these conditions to my advantage to help get a bit of momentum. So again, I think this is a really important one, especially if you're feeling a little bit stuck. Plan and use conditions to your advantage. So I hope you can take some value out of my lessons here as well. Sure, I had some success, but I also had some big fails. And I think this is true, yes, for photography or learning any skill, but just life in general. We often learn far, far more from our failures than our successes. So don't dwell on them. See what you can learn and jump back into it next time. Another big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Please do check them out. And please do subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Keep on creating and keep on growing, my friends. I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.